Hello, and welcome to this latest edition of Elevenses. My name is James.
And I'm Kate.
And we are here to talk you through which AdWords attribution model should I use. So quick introduction, we'll spin this out for about sort of 10 or 15 seconds just so that people have time to join and everyone has time to log in. Chances are, I guess, we probably know some of you watching, so that's a nice thing. But anyway, as mentioned, my name is James. I'm an agency development manager here at Google, and I love attribution. It imbues everything I do, and it plays a very large part of my children's bedtime stories at night. So no, I'm just being silly. But yeah, no, I do indeed enjoy a good attribution conversation. Kate.
I'm Kate Monday, and I'm an account strategist. I work with the Density Media Network, and this is something we've been regularly talking about actually in our recent conversations. And it's extremely important, I can see, for themselves and for their clients. So I'm excited to talk to you about it today.
Cool. So I'm going to kick off, and Kate's going to take the second half of the prezzo. But we want to talk you through some, high-level things about attribution, and then get into the weeds a little bit and look at, if you wanted to switch over to an attribution model today, what would you actually do? How would you go about, pulling up a few reports and getting a sense of it? Because what we do understand is that there are many models, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So the first thing, though, I think it's worth sort of positioning attribution and measurement as the things that they are. So I think, firstly, let's define what that means. Measurement is, to me at least, the idea of looking at the right metrics. For what you're trying to achieve, looking at the right metrics. Attribution is then attributing value to those metrics. However, as Sigmund Freud observed, a century or more ago, it's impossible to escape the impression that people commonly use false standards of measurement. So what would be a false standard of measurement? Well, it might be looking at, average CPC in a YouTube TrueView campaign, or it might be caring exclusively about impressions. It might be like saying, if impressions go up and revenue goes up, we're doing well. Probably any CFO would tell you that isn't the case, but it's important to understand that we need to look at, obviously, the correct sort of standards. Now, I think the main issue with attribution as it stands today is that it's seen as incredibly difficult. Digital is obviously amazing. There's this giant sort of sea of data that exists in our data centers and many other companies' data centers. But how do you take that data and tame it and shape it and do something with it? The truth is that attribution need not be difficult. This is, I think this is a linear regression model or something like that. But it looks like the kind of thing that would be more at home with the guys running the CERN particle or Large Hadron Particle Collider than perhaps in an AdWords account. The truth is, attribution doesn't need to be difficult. It really is not an equation to be solved. It's a simple strategic choice about what to value. And I would say that the most valuable, the best attribution model is one that you and your client and everyone who's involved in the whole sort of, from end to end sort of procedure agrees upon. If you agree upon it and you know why you're using it, then it's going to be valuable to you. And like I say, it's more about choosing what to value and why, and applying a lot of common sense to the kind of data that's there in front of you, than worrying that we need to, build something like this and we have to hire a guy who's got a PhD. It's not really about that. Now, this brings us to Lastclick. So Lastclick attribution is definitely the industry standard at the moment. It is the thing that 97% of us use. So imagine that, 97% of, say, AdWords accounts out there right now would be using a Lastclick model. Now, Lastclick is not defective in any way. It's an incredibly robust way to measure things and to kind of attribute value. But what it is incredibly limited. And it dates back from a time when the world was simpler, when everyone had, one laptop computer. They didn't have multiple devices. They weren't looking at their phone in the morning and their tablet in the evening and then sort of going from there, choosing to purchase things across an array of devices, but rather they just had one thing. So what we need to do is, if I could inculcate any sense in you today, it would be a sense of discomfort, of sort of enthusiastic discomfort about the limitations of Lastclick and why it's a thing that's been great up to now. It's gotten us all where we are today, but we need to move on a little bit. Let's take an example of why that is. How did you get to work in the morning today? Maybe in my case, I left the house, I cycled to the train, I took the train, I walked a little bit, it didn't rain, that was nice, I enjoyed it. And then I eventually got to the office and I took the lift 7 floors up and I got off the lift. What Lastclick does is it credits the lift with 100% of the credit for my journey to and eventual arrival at work. It says only the lift had anything to do with it. My cycling, my train had nothing to do with it. So, this is why I think Lastclick is a bit limited and we need to kind of start moving beyond it to see the full picture. How else Can you make sure you're doing all the right upper funnel stuff? How else can you sort of, weigh your brand advertising against your non-brand advertising and know what ultimate impact and kind of financial revenue impact it's actually having at the end? Well, the way to do that is to start to value things like the cycling and the train in terms of your actual sort of campaigns that are out there. Now, I doubt even this slide is going to be terribly new to anyone. You've probably seen this all before, but I want to reintroduce some attribution models, and I'm going to talk at a high level, a sort of a Google Analytics or whatever you're using, Omniture or whatever it is, data analytics level for a while. But fundamentally today, I want to use AdWords and we want to use search as a kind of way into an attribution conversation, a way to think about things. So what we'll do is we'll think about the attribution models that exist in AdWords accounts themselves. You've got the 5 traditional models: last click, first click, linear, position-based, and time decay. And now this new one, data-driven, which I'm going to focus on a bit today. But I mean, really, these are just simply ways of assigning credit to the various touch points that a user interacted with your advertising. So a touch point is just someone, seeing an impression or clicking on an ad of yours before they eventually make a conversion. Last click, we're saying, is limited. First click, useful in some sort of display applications, but for the most part, probably not something you want to look at too commonly in a performance sort of situation. Linear assigns credit equally to all the different touch points. Okay. Position-based is a bit different. We're going to leave that to the side for now, but fundamentally you can see from the graphic what it does. And then time decay assigns credit backwards and sort of gives it proportionally, but it weights it for time passed. So that's great. Data-driven is a new and exciting model. Data-driven harnesses the power of sort of Google's big data and its data servers and all of this amazing arsenal of equipment that we have. And it says we can count every single interaction, every touch point, every impression, every click across all of your search advertising. And we can actually attribute value truly and, with 100% accuracy to that in order to determine what it's doing for conversions. Data-driven attribution needs 800 conversions over 20,000 clicks in 30 days in order to be turned on in an account. What I would say, though, is regardless of what model you use, as long as you don't blanket switch from last click to first click for no particular reason, if you go to linear or to time decay or to data-driven, that is automatically a tremendous step up. How would you actually choose? Well, I mean, obviously it's worth sort of knowing a few things about it. I resist the urge to verticalize things or to say, all finance clients should use this model. The reason being is that there are, lots of different types of finance clients. There's the disruptors, the new ones, the tech startups, there's the old established guys, and they're all a bit different. Taking 3 models, taking data-driven, which you don't need to choose, you can just use it for any vertical, but looking at time decay and linear as 2 sort of other choices if data-driven is not available, I would say use these sort of precepts to determine which one you should choose. If you're conservative, choose time decay. If you're growth-orientated, choose linear, and you can see those there. But either one, whichever you use, will be better than last click. Now, looking at a very high level for a minute, this is the kind of traditional attribution model that we might see in analytics or something like that. And I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but again, it doesn't really matter which model you choose. What we find is that last click attribution modeling will consistently overvalue direct and undervalue display. There's a bit of a variance between them, but broadly speaking, they paint the same picture. Zooming in, though, and looking at an actual search example, let's see what sort of happens. Why would we want to move away from last click? Well, in this example of great tech gifts, moving down the path to highly rated tablets and eventually searching for Nexus 9 tablet, this path yielded 12 conversions over a period of time. The problem is, if I only focus on Nexus 9 tablet as being the sole contributor to that set of conversions, I'm missing out on a much bigger market. My client can't go and leverage the $20 billion opportunity that exists in keywords like great tech gifts because we're just not taking that into account. Now, why is data-driven great? I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. This deck will be available after, and so will this presentation again. But fundamentally, what we're doing with data-driven is literally assigning every single credit, as I say, in a kind of path and giving every credit or every touch point credit. So it's 100% personalized to your own data. How this works, and here's an example of it, is it takes the sort of delta between the various touch points and works out how that will contribute or not to your conversion rate. And in addition to doing this, it will actually look at touch points that drive negative growth, that literally don't contribute anything, and it will factor those in. So it can say with great accuracy, this keyword or this campaign or this ad group contributes X amount to the ultimate kind of conversion rate and conversion volume. So here's an example of how that same path would look under a data-driven model. What you're seeing is, 60% credit given to great tech gifts at the beginning of the funnel, whereas under the Lastclick model, that would have all been given to the last touch point, which is Nexus 9 tablet. So we can immediately see that that campaign is likely to have been undervalued under a Lastclick model, and we should apportion more budget and bids and attention and make sure we have the right creative in order to drive the ultimate conversion, at the end of the thing. Attribution works cross-device too. Kate's going to talk more about that, but just to sort of put it on your radar and show a table of, again, Lastclick. If we don't take into account the different device touch points, obviously we undervalue them. So when asked the question by the client, why am I paying 10% more for a mobile click? Or why am I paying 20% more for a tablet click? Or 60% less for a debt? Or whatever it is. I'm not implying that mobile clicks are more expensive there, by the way. But this is how you actually have that conversation. So I'm going to hand over to Kate now to look at some reports that you'll find in your AdWords account. Absolutely.
So I'm going to take you through now some reports that you can take your clients into, show them and explain to them why then moving away from non-click is really important to their business. The brilliance about all of these reports is you can find them in the AdWords interface themselves. So if you go into tools and then into attribution, you should be able to see them down the left-hand side panel. So the first one is looking at the time lag and the path length then. So the time it then takes for somebody to convert and the path that they take, so the actual days to convert as well. So if we think about this in the real world, this is how long it takes somebody to move back and forth, maybe to competitors or move around your website to different campaigns through different keywords and then finally make a conversion. And this is really important. If we are looking at a last click, we're just assuming then that there is just one click and a purchase. But of course, then the longer that it takes, the more clicks to conversion and the longer that path, then obviously the more we have to start thinking about using a different attribution model. The next is the different paths that people take, so the top path reports. And again, this is really interesting to see how complex that landscape is. Are there lots of different paths that people are taking, and what is the most common between those? And again, this is thinking about your different keywords and your different ad groups and how are people moving between those. It can really help you optimize your campaigns as well to think, are they flowing well enough? And also in a real life sense as well, is their search getting more complex is what you might predict? Or again, are they getting brand awareness the closer they are to making that conversion? The next one is looking at both clicks and impression-assisted conversions. So like James mentioned at the start there, his journey to work and how it wasn't just simply a lift. He actually took a bus and a train, and we can then define that right down to a keyword and ad group level, or even those campaigns, and look at whether that is actually true. Did the bike help him get to work, or did the train as well? And on what basis did that help? And last of all, then, we talked about the cross-device just shortly there. So looking at different devices, and not just mobile actually, but tablet and desktop as well. And how do they then contribute to that conversion? We talk about mobile a lot, as we know, but you might have an assumption that people, start off their research on their mobile device and then later move to a desktop. And in this report, you can actually define that. Does that ring true? Do you have a high mobile assisted impression? I can't say it. Moving on then to the last one. So as we just mentioned, data-driven attribution is definitely something we recommend. But if you don't have enough data for that, then this is the attribution modeling tool you can also find there, where you can have a little play around with the different attribution models that Jay mentioned at the start, and see which one is bringing you out the best, maybe CPA, if that's something you're looking at, or the highest conversion values, etc. So really a good tool to, like I said, have a little play around with and show your clients this and get them to use it as well, maybe, and see what they think. And as well, you don't have to look at campaign level here. You can look at that on a different level, so ad groups, etc. So when you want to actually make that change, when you've decided which model you want to use, then if you just go into your conversions, so tools and conversions, and then into the settings, you can make that change within there. And it's really key to note here that you can make that at an account level or at an MCC level. So once you've selected which model you want, then it's really important to also make sure that you've got this included in your conversion data, so that this we can then use if you're using auto bidding, which is also something we really strongly recommend. For example, the target CPA, or this is machine learning auto bidding that we definitely believe is going to be essential in the future. What do you think as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if you look at the sort of optimizing manually and setting bids manually obviously makes sense in a lot of cases. However, if we start to value every point in the path, if we start to value every campaign that contributes a bit when it's shown on mobile and the ultimate conversion happens 9 days later on a desktop and someone's moved through a whole unique and personalized journey, if we're not using kind of machine learning to bid against that entire journey and every touch point, we're going to lose out, because we physically can't deal with that. We can't manually set bids for different devices, different people, everything else in kind of real time. So this is where machine learning is going to take a lot of the heavy lifting and burden off of your plates and allow you spend that time on things that are better suited to your clients, that drive more sort of real value. And I always think that none of this stuff should be seen as oh my God, this attribution model is going to put me out of a job or anything like that. No, what we need to do is meld the incredible power of machine learning and machines with the incredible power of us being human beings who understand our clients and understand that Black Friday is a thing now, things that machines can never understand. So I think it's a tremendously good point.
Absolutely agree. So last of all then is, you might be asking yourself, so when do I actually test this? So this is the kind of timeline that we've set out. So we definitely recommend a 2-week control period at the start, and then start to measure some of these reports, look at these reports we've just been through here. For example, the amount of days it takes to make a conversion, so that time lag, and then make your change. So then make the change of which attribution you're going to activate, allow adjustment period of another 2 weeks, so that for those different bidding models that you might use. And then again, a further 2 weeks for control period before you then make that second measurement of, again, the day's conversion, looking at these reports again, and then make the comparison to see the difference that it's had on your account, so the before and after effect.
Exactly. One point I might add to that is that if we use a Lastclick model, as 97% of us do, and if we use any kind of auto bidding, whether it's enhanced CPC or conversion optimizer, those tools have been bidding towards a Lastclick model, right? So they become very good at getting you Lastclick results. It will take time for the system to be able to use the different touch points in order to bid towards them, but it will do it. Your client will sell more product. They will begin to actually, have to make organizational changes to their business based on the kind of results that are returned to them. But it is an incremental process. However, if you don't step through the door, if you don't do it, we're really never going to find that out.
Absolutely. We definitely need that adjustment period to allow that machine learning, like we mentioned.
And obviously, if your conversion path is 3 weeks, the 2-week limit will be too small here, so you want to extend that out. Again, always apply common sense over the top of it. None of this is anything other than a bunch of tools and a bit of common sense, really, when it comes down to it, with this great underpinning of machine learning underneath it.
Very true. Brilliant. So if you've got any questions, definitely reach out to your Google reps, and they will be more than willing to help you. And thank you very much for listening. Goodbye from us.
Goodbye.